Hi, welcome back to the Try Not to Cringe challenge. This was supposed to be out for Halloween. Well, it's been 5 years since Five Nights at Freddy's burst into the indie scene and made everyone's life miserable. In case you've never heard of it, good for you. It's a 2014 indie horror game where you work a 6-hour shift as a security guard in a Chuck E. Cheese-esque pizza establishment, crawling with evil animatronics trying to fucking murder you. Even if you've never played them, these games were pretty damn hard to avoid. Kids really seemed to like them, and the screaming YouTubers liked them even more. The sequels only worked to amp up the kids and YouTubers, and I shit you not, the first 4 games all came out in the span of a year, with the first being released in August of 2014 and the 4th being released in July of 2015. That's insane! And Five Nights at Freddy's actually holds the record for the most amount of video game sequels released in a year, which, first of all, is hilarious, but it is also kind of impressive considering these games were only made by one guy, Scott Coffin. And I know what the title of this video says, but back in 2015, I actually kind of fucking hated Five Nights at Freddy's, and I know a lot of other people felt the same. The screaming YouTubers had lost their appeal. There were 4 extremely similar games out in under a year, with almost the exact same formula and method of delivering scares. Even the biggest gamer on the platform got sick of it.
Oh shit. If you play the first 3 games, you're practically immune to the jump scares by now.
Then came the books, and the RPG game that nobody liked, and the merch. Oh god, the merch. This one I acquired through dubious means. And this one I won at Dave & Buster's. It was starting to maybe feel like this guy was milking it, and then the movie got announced, and it was like, oh yeah, he is. I know that the general consensus outside of certain circles is that Five Nights at Freddy's is a dumb jump scare fest targeted at 12-year-olds, and I mean, that's not wrong. But FNAF, I'm calling it FNAF because some people do, and it's kind of canon now because there's a game called FNAF World, and I just think it's funny, but FNAF has grown and evolved in some interesting ways over the past 5 years, and I think that's worthy of discussion. I mean, why the hell not? People make think pieces about Minecraft and Fortnite, and that's all well and good, but the second I try to do one on Five Nights at Freddy's, it's like, oh, it's cringy. Newsflash. All 3 games are targeted at the exact same audience. And yeah, FNAF isn't exactly the worldwide phenomenon that Minecraft and Fortnite are. There will never be a ninja being paid millions of dollars to play Five Nights at Freddy's. But it did manage to launch a surprising amount of careers. Dawko was able to drop out of college to play FNAF full time.
After this game came out, I was in university studying law at the time, and I quit to carry on with this game franchise for my channel.
Markiplier
Hello, everybody.
blew the hell up between 2014 and 2015. I wonder why that is.
Bye-bye.
We all know what FNAF did for game theory.
I guess we're both milkmaids at the teat of Freddy Fazcow.
I'll even lump the living Tombstone into this. I subscribed to him ages ago, back when he used to make brony music. But he got a new resurgence when he started making FNAF music. And I think it's easy to say that the only reason FNAF got popular in the first place was because of the YouTubers. The screaming YouTubers, to be more specific. And yes, the screaming gamer community was well established on the internet by the time FNAF came out. And FNAF did slot itself right in there perfectly. But FNAF had tens of thousands of downloads before it was even put up on Steam.
You know, I remember whenever I released it, you know, I didn't get it on Steam or anything. It was a website called Desera at the time. And eventually my wife would come over and she'd be like, let me look at the number, let me look at the number. She'd come over every 10 minutes wanting to see, because she was just astonished at how quickly that number was just going from, you know, 5,000 downloads, 10,000, 15,000, 20,000. It was just going through the roof just by the minute.
And if you go to Markiplier's first playthrough of the game, which arguably started the craze and has 76 million views, Jesus Christ, he specifically says that he was flooded with requests to play this game.
Welcome to Five Nights at Freddy's, an indie horror game that you guys suggested en masse.
Obviously, people liked it from the start. So I guess the question here then is, why? Well, in case you weren't around in 2014, the indie horror gaming sphere was kind of not great. It was all Slender and Amnesia and their barrage of knockoffs.
Jesus Christ, go!
Which weren't necessarily bad, don't get me wrong, but that's all there had been for years. So then here comes this newcomer with a unique concept and enemy, and a new kind of gameplay where you don't run around or fight or explore, you just sit on your ass and look at a camera and close doors, and that's it. You don't ever move to a new location, you never have meaningful interactions with characters other than the only dialogue in the entire game is from Scott Coffin himself, phoning in to give you instructions.
Hello? Hello? I wanted to record a message for you to help you get settled in on your first night.
The gameplay never changes in any significant way either. Like, yeah, the nights get harder as you go on, but nothing ever changes with the animatronics or their movement patterns. Every single time it's left door, right door, Pirate Cove, lights out, Golden Freddy. Over and over and over again. And yeah, that doesn't sound particularly exciting.
Now, prepare for the next step in video game horror. Sitting on your ass doing absolutely nothing.
But there was something unique and eerie about a horror game trapping you in a tiny office with no way to protect yourself. You can't even lock yourself in. The doors are electric and use up power if they're closed. And sometimes they lock up and you can't close them at all. Yeah, that is dumb and kind of cheating. But honestly, the resource management in this game is definitely part of the spook factor. Aside from the stress it causes, if you run out of power, you are left completely helpless. And yeah, this part does end with a jump scare. The jump scares kill this game for a lot of people.
I've actually only played the first one. I mean, I've always been one of those advocate, like, haters of the series, just because it's like, I hate jump scares, I think they're cheap, you know?
A lot of horror fans consider jump scares to be lazy. It isn't really a scare, it's just a small rush of adrenaline that triggers your fight or flight response, and that's it. And yeah, I agree, I don't like them either, but I'm actually gonna defend the ones on FNAF. Just a little. You do know you can get through the entire game without getting jump scared, right? They aren't littered throughout the entire game. They only happen when you die. If you keep getting jump scared in Five Nights at Freddy's, that's your own damn fault. I personally didn't get jump scared once until night 4. Clearly, I'm the only real gamer here. And the game never does that really obvious thing where it suddenly gets all quiet in anticipation for the scare. No, it has a consistent atmosphere throughout. The only time it ever feels like a jump scare is being built up is when you run out of power. But it is still possible to win at this point. If you sit still and don't move, you might just last long enough for the clock to turn over. This part is suspenseful, not because you might get jump scared, but because you might not get jump scared. And I think that's pretty cool. Do I personally find the jump scares scary? Not really. But do I think they're enough to ruin the game? Not really. There are other things that work. The game really takes advantage of old VHS-styled graphics and the way the static forces your eye to fill in the blanks. Did his head move, or is it just my eyes playing tricks on me? Is this a door at the end of the hall, or is it the haunted chicken? And the haunted chicken herself is nicely uncanny. Actually, the uncanniness is the reason FNAF exists to begin with. Scott Coffin actually used to make family-friendly Christian games? Yes, really. with the last one he made being called Chipper & Sons. It got destroyed by some very notable critics.
You may notice the dead, terrifying, soulless eyes of the background characters. That's a signature of Chip and whatever the fuck it was called.
I was heartbroken and was ready to give up on game making. Then one night, something just snapped in me, and I thought to myself, I bet I can make something a lot scarier than that. Good on Scott for taking criticism and turning it on its head, making his biggest weakness into one of FNAF's biggest strengths. The animatronics are a unique horror enemy, and I think they're actually one of the main reasons it got popular with kids. They're scary, but they aren't that scary. They don't have the sharp teeth and rot the characters have in the later games. They're actually pretty cartoony and cute. And while they are possessed by the spirits of angry dead children, spoiler alert, you never actually see anything too gross or fucked up. It's edgy, but it's not too edgy. So basically, if you were into the Nightmare Before Christmas in middle school, congratulations, you were the early 2000s version of a FNAF kid. Sorry, I don't make the rules. I get why people hate this game. You wake up one day and people won't shut the fuck up about the scariest game in years, and then you go to play it for yourself and it's just a sit in a chair and be screamed at simulator. And then you go to Target and there's merch everywhere and there's children making fan art and porn and oh god, there's over 1,000 fan games? What the fuck? I honestly believe that if FNAF never took off in the way that it did, and people discovered it on their own while scrolling through Steam, most people would just feel completely neutral about it. It's nothing great, but it also doesn't really do anything that bad, except for the lock in the door thing that was dumb. It's basically what you would expect from a $5 Steam game, and there's nothing really wrong with that. But, of course, it did get popular. It did blow up. So it's time to start cranking out the sequels. FNAF 2 does the typical sequel thing where it's just like the first game, but more extreme. There's twice as many animatronics, no doors to protect you, and more ways the animatronics can get into your office and fucking murder you. There's a two-headed spider Foxy, who I love. This absolute madman who I can only assume strangles you with her bizarro noodle arms if you don't play her a jaunty tune. The haunted chicken is sexy now. That's weird and uncomfortable, but I'm just like weirdly entranced by the choice to remove her beak when she goes on the attack. It's a weird design choice, but her teeth are weird and it's kind of creepy and I like it. Oh, and there's also this fucker. And yeah, this stuff is great. FNAF 2 has so much going on that it's definitely one of the more fun games in the series. But same thing but more is pretty typical for a sequel. I honestly believe that if this was all there was, the series probably would have ended here, but Scott Cawthon did something very, very smart. Something I am going to hereby refer to as vague lore. There were inklings of lore in the first game, articles detailing the disappearance of 5 children from their local Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria, a man arrested in connection with the crime, and the 5 animatronics oozing out mysterious smelly liquids. I didn't notice them personally, but these tidbits didn't seem so much as a story as it did an explanation for why the robots were alive. Like, if you really cared about why any of this was happening, there you go. But when FNAF 2 rolled around, the backstory got way more focused through the use of short Atari-styled mini-games that show this purple guy shanking a child and a puppet stuffing dead bodies into screaming metal death traps. They weren't in any particular order. They were never explained in any way. They were just random snippets you got sometimes after you died. I mean, I never saw them, no matter how many times I suicided myself. I stole this footage, I tried my best. But these unimpressive little snippets transformed formed this fan base. The fans went from laughing at a YouTuber doing a silly haha scream to frothing at the mouth over every tiny scrap of lore. Game Theory's eyes went black and they started pumping out video after video, along with many, many other channels. Every pixel, every color, every finger
Notice that the FNAF 4 Nightmare animatronics all have 5 fingers.
was analyzed in excruciating detail as the fans scrambled to solve the mystery with very little evidence to go off of. Also, this game is a prequel, and that fact alone made a bunch of children fight each other with bike chains out behind the local Arby's. This, I think, is the purest example of J.J. Abrams' mystery box. The mystery box is the idea that the audience is more engaged by a mystery than the answer to the mystery.
I realized that mystery is the catalyst for imagination. Now, it's not the most groundbreaking idea, but when I started to think that maybe there are times when mystery is more important than knowledge.
Solving a mystery is fun, but the fun ends when you start giving your audience conclusive answers. So just never give them conclusive answers. And FNAF very rarely gives conclusive answers.
They used to be allowed to walk around during the day too, but then there was the bite of 87.
Every new game just piles on the questions and lets the fierce run wild with them. And look, there actually is a mystery box in FNAF, and it never opens. Neat. When you get to FNAF free, the lore is a little bit more concrete. A little. The mini games are all in order, and this time happen after you win each night. This is also the first FNAF game with multiple endings. You get the same basic storyline no matter what you do, with the purple guy destroying the animatronics, and then the little murderlings appearing and forcing him into the Springtrap suit. Delicious. Surprise! The animatronic in the game you've been fighting this whole time was the child murderer all along. So yeah, both endings have this scene, but if you take the extra initiative, glitch through secret mini games, and punch numbers into cinder blocks, the children's souls are freed, and they heavy rain themselves off to heaven. And then the building burns down. The end!
That is the end of Five Nights at Freddy as far as I know. Like, I don't even think that I want there to be any more Five Nights at Freddy's after this.
FNAF 3 was supposed to be the last game. It really was.
I think when I was making that game, in my mind, that was the end of a trilogy.
But then the fans were unhappy with the jump scares.
Even though I may have, in some alternate life, may have left the series alone at 3, people were not happy with the jump scare.
Yeah, that's the reason why we got like 10 more FNAF games. Which is so weird. Like, yeah, Springtrap's jump scare wasn't great, but there were plenty of other jump scares to choose from. Yeah, so I can't defend this as much as the first game. This game is basically a jump scare fest. You still can avoid all the jump scares. I mean, I didn't. But in theory you can by maintaining the ventilation and not staring at ghosts. So, it's not a complete jump scare fest. Not yet. Personally, I was more offended by the static in the game. Like, yeah, static is a staple of the series. It's been in every game up to this point, but my god, the entire gameplay is based on keeping an eye on Springtrap, and I can never see Springtrap. Shout out to anyone who uploaded the security footage without the static. Not that it helped that much, like, what the fuck? I'm sorry. Is there a bunny in this image? This is blatant discrimination against people who squint at road signs on the highway, and frankly, I'm appalled. But whatever. Yay, FNAF 4. It was supposed to be released on Halloween 2015, but then Scott released it 3 months early, in July, which was smack in the middle of con season.
I mean, in that amount of time, all I could do was release a rushed-out retrofitted prediction theory because I was stuck in con season when the game was released.
I sent one to Markiplier, and he emailed me back saying, dude, I can't play this. I just got to, this game conference just started. It's going to be going on for 4 days.
And then when people did get to play it, it was the exact same formula as the previous free games that came out in the span of a year. Well, I mean, kind of. FNAF 4 was more sound-based than its predecessors, and it took place in a bedroom instead of a restaurant. So it's the first FNAF game with no cameras. It also messes with a few of the familiar mechanics. Like, it's actually kind of unsettling that using the light, which in the other games was a helpful tool, can be a straight-up insta-kill in this game. But everything else was pretty damn similar. I didn't play this one initially, I just watched Markiplier play it, and even then I skipped over the gameplay and went right into the dank lore. A small child is dreading his birthday party at Freddy Fazbear's later that week and is also being terrorized by his brother. And then his brother shoves him into the golden Freddy animatronic. Crunch. Surprise! The entire game was the freakish imagination of a dying child the entire time. Actually, that's 2 games in a row that ends with someone dying horrifically in a yellow suit as a big reveal. And here's the thing, even though these lore sequences are the best parts of the game, they didn't really connect to anything we'd already seen. Like, wow, okay, someone getting bit. Are we finally seeing the
bite of 87
that was alluded to 3 games ago? Oh, no, this is 1983. Okay, well, then this is the kid who goes on to possess Golden Freddy, right? But wait, isn't Golden Freddy supposed to be one of the 5 murdered children?
What does that mean? What does that mean? Still doesn't explain the murders, like the murders of the children and how...
Literally Game Theory made an entire episode just to say that FNAF is now impossible to solve because it's now too vague.
But Scott has done such a good job of keeping the game in flux that the pieces never quite feel like they fit in a way that feels satisfying.
FNAF World came out and no one liked it, and it was released in a broken state. Or at least an incomplete state. This was the point where just absolutely everyone started accusing Scott of milking the series, including me. I mean, they'd already been doing that, but you know, like now it got really bad. If you play all the way through this one, you actually get to fight Scott Coffin himself, so it's your fault then for my misery. It's never enough for you people. I'm not one to assume people's mental state based off of the games that they make, but this is a thing that happened. And there was also a few little moments like this.
Voice acting? No! He's gone too far this time!
Okay, so Scott was having a difficult time before he made FNAF. He was making games specifically so he could support his family.
I was just trying to, make a bunch of little games to kind of, help support my family. At the time, I think I was making, slot machine games and just, anything that would bring in an extra, $40 or $50 a month.
But he was struggling, and he lost his insurance after the insurance company found out he was suicidal. Scott is a very religious man who, like I mentioned earlier, used to make Christian games, one that apparently had a pro-life message. Wow. And when he found success with a little horror game he made after being ripped to shreds by critics, he thought he finally found what God wanted him to do. And look, I don't care if you're not religious. I'm certainly not religious, but if the man honestly thought that he found what God wanted him to do, then of course he's gonna keep doing it, and of course he's going to monetize it so he could feed his kids. I can't fault him for that. Granted, it'd be nice if he spent more than a couple months making the games. He didn't exactly give himself the time to experiment with new ideas and grow as a creator, and it was something people picked up on very fast. But credit where credit is due, Scott actually actually seems to take criticism to heart. He claims he didn't mean for the coffee pot game to have a pro-life message, but he actually removed it when people were interpreting it like that. And this was 2 years before FNAF came out, so he wasn't like covering his ass because suddenly people were paying attention to him. He apologized for the state that FNAF World was released in, refunded everyone who bought it, and removed it off Steam.
What I learned from FNAF World is what is driving every single project going on right now. It is serving as the gemstone of quality control in my mind, and it has solidified exactly what I have to do going forward. It taught me to never take for granted how special it is to have a group of people who are eager to play what you make.
So he gained some newfound perspective from this experience. What did he do with it? Sister Location was announced a few months after FNAF World came out and was released later that year in October of 2016. There were still books coming out in the meantime, but the game itself had a much longer development than its predecessors. I was still very, very skeptical. I still had some bitterness left over from the year of endless sequels, and I just assumed that this game would be a cash-in clone and that it would be bad and stupid. But then, just before the scheduled release date, Scott posted that the game was too dark, and he was going to scrap the whole thing. But since everyone wants to see the dark version so bad, he'll put it online for free. And then this happened.
So this is the mature version of Sister Location. The real version won't be coming out for another 2 months. So here it is. This is a preview of it.
Okay, so the new... Yeah, cool.
Wait,
alright.
Are you kidding me? Are you effing kidding me?
Oh, it was a troll?
Are you
it was a troll the whole time?
Are you kidding me?
Oh, we got trolls.
Are you kidding me?
Oh my god, that's amazing! Okay, your marketing scheme worked. I'm interested now. And then like 2 days later when the game actually came out, wow, voice actors who aren't Scott?
I don't recognize you. You are new.
New tasks to do every night? New gameplay blended with old gameplay? The ability to walk around? This is actually a huge step forward for the series. Now it's on par with every other video game in existence. I'm sorry. Don't get me wrong, this isn't a perfect game or anything. There are these sort of checkpoints within the night, so if you die during one sequence, you don't have to replay the entire night, which is really cool and helpful, but why the actual fuck do you have to replay the Ballora sequence if you die during the Freddy power out sequence? The Ballora sequence isn't hard, but it's just so long and boring. Literally every time I had to redo it, I was reading Twitter at the same time. Because staring at an almost entirely black screen and spamming the W key isn't really enriching gameplay, you know? There's this one part where you get stuck in a springlock suit and there's these tiny animatronics climbing up the suit to kill you. And if you try to wiggle them off, it loosens the spring locks. Just a reminder, this is what happens if the spring locks get too loose. So obviously, if the animatronics get you, there's a jump scare. But what if the spring locks get you? It's the same jump scare. Come on, Scott, you have an animation degree. At least we have day shift at Freddy's. Also, this whole sequence starts off with a Foxy jump scare. This is a scripted event. You can't avoid it. So finally, Five Nights at Freddy's has turned into a jump scare fest. But there's plenty of improvements in the game that I really appreciate. Sister Location is one of the least vague in the story department in that, you know, like the actual gameplay builds to something, and there's also named characters for once.
Father, it's me, Michael.
The most notable addition is that we finally get an answer to a major question in the series, the identity of the child-murdering great man.
Those aren't the design choices we were curious about, Mr. Afton.
William Afton, the owner of Freddy Fazbear's, which is kind of like if the Craigslist killer was Craig himself. If game theory can drag real-life crimes into this, so can I. We don't get a motive or any characterization, but we do learn from the voice clips at the end of every night that Afton made an animatronic based on his daughter, but he won't let her anywhere near it.
Daddy, why won't you let me play with her?
So she sneaks away to see it for herself.
Daddy isn't watching.
Then on night 3, an animatronic named Baby tells you about the time she murdered a little girl.
There was screaming for a moment, but only for a moment. I still hear her sometimes. Why did that happen?
During one ending, Baby berates you, asking you if you took the job to see
her again.
Okay, I see what happened here. The obvious assumption everyone made from this is that you are playing as William Afton, Purple Guy himself, and you're trying to find your murdered daughter who has possessed Baby. This isn't actually the canon ending though. No, that would be the one where Baby lures you into the scooping room, reveals that she and the other animatronics have formed into one, then scoops out your insides and wears your skin like a suit so they can go live life like a normal human. And then the skin suit literally rots and vomits out its robotic insides. Delicious.
You won't die, you won't die. You won't die.
Which means that the purple guy wasn't actually purple because he was in shadow. It means that he's purple because he's just a walking, rotting mass of skin. And yeah, it's just skin. They scooped out his bones and his guts, so he's just skin. And if that's not crazy enough, it actually turns out this purple guy isn't even the killer. If you beat the last custom night level, you get another cutscene where your character addresses his father and then says, "I'm going to come find you." And then we see Springtrap arise from the ashes of FNAF Brie, which, alright, so there's two purple guys now. One is a child shanker trapped inside of a yellow zombie rabbit, and the other is his skin son. God, this is complete batshit. I love it. It's fun. Batshit insane horror is fun. Why do you think the new It movies were so popular? Most people I know who saw them didn't think they were super scary, but liked them anyways because of how goofy and ridiculous they were. Fuck you, I feel like a lot of people think that FNAF holds itself up to a very high standard of horror and takes itself very seriously, but not really. If it did, there wouldn't be a character you had to scare away by lolling at it. Usually its more goofy moments take the form of anti-corporation jokes.
Fazbear Entertainment is not responsible for damage to property or person. Upon discovering that damage or death has occurred, a missing person report will be filed within 90 days or as soon as property and premises have been thoroughly cleaned and bleached and the carpets have been replaced. Blah, blah, blah.
Not only do these serve as an explanation as to why the company doesn't do anything about the killer robots running around, they also mirror our real-life corporations.
Now that your elevator experience has been customized to your needs and you're thoroughly relaxed, it's worth mentioning that due to your lackluster performance yesterday, your pay has been decreased by a substantial amount.
We gotta cut corners somewhere. It's just our employees' lives. But not every goofy moment is blatant communist propaganda. Take Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Simulator. It was released about 14 months after Sister Location and is the most unique FNAF game so far. It's part tycoon game, part normal FNAF game, and part, tasers?
Document result.
Interesting thing to carry over from Sister Location.
Press the red button now to administer a controlled shock.
The tycoon aspect of the game is very goofy and tongue-in-cheek. But if you go a level deeper, you find some things. More mini-games to be exact, but this time around the games are much better integrated, being the attractions you put down in the arcade. Beating the maze game gives you a scene of a child being lured away. Glitching through the bottom of the racing game gives you a mini-game about an abusive father. And buying the security puppet shows a bullied little girl dying in the rain. These are played completely straight. FNAF is a series that doesn't really take itself that seriously, but it takes the lore seriously. Because Scott knows that the fans take the lore seriously. The way this game ends confirms it.
You have all been called here, into a labyrinth of sounds and smells, misdirection, and misfortune.
As it turns out, you were playing as the purple guy the whole time. The one who got scooped, I mean. Skin Man. And the guy who hired you is the puppet's father.
I should have known you wouldn't be content to disappear. Not my daughter.
He calls back to previous games, finally confirms a few things, and reveals baby's real name.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Elizabeth.
And then lights the building on fire, letting himself and you burn along with the ghostly robots.
In communication.
The end! Again, this game improves on Sister Location in a few ways. Sister Location had a lot of diverse gameplay, but they were all very separate and didn't affect each other at all. But in Pizza Simulator, the choices you make in newer parts of the game affect the gameplay in the more traditional FNAF sequences. Also, since Sister Location, the games have been better about having an actual plot that's in the forefront. But more and more, they require a deep understanding of the lore. And Sister Location, there's an oh shit moment when the name is spoken out loud, but only if you've read the books. And the speech at the end of the Pizza Simulator is directed at people who have been following the vague lore from the beginning. But even then, Scott still throws curveballs. I can't even begin to describe the collective stroke the fan base had when they saw the orange guy.
Orange? Thanks, Scott. We finally solved the identity of Purple Guy, and you just had to throw in one final monochromatic mystery man.
The game theories got wild at this point, too. Like, they said Mangle is Chica's dog.
But I'm not saying that the girl is Mangle. I'm telling you it's her dog. Her name is Susie, and that she goes on to possess Chica.
That's so batshit. I love it. Make it canon, Scott. Make it canon, please. Please, Scott, please. So, even though we got a handful of answers and the story is happily concluded, the mystery box is still alive and well. Yippee! Ultimate Custom Night was released about 6 months after Pizza Simulator. This game features almost every element from every previous FNAF game, put in a blender and mixed with every drug you can think of. There's over 50 characters in this game. 50 characters! And some of them are really obscure. Take Old Man Consequences, a character from FNAF World, a game that no one played. And look, the creepy beaver Jim Sterling hated, now Fiesta style. You get cutscenes every 1,000 points you earn, and in every other FNAF game, the cutscenes are where the entire story is, but this is, no, this time the lore comes from losing. Just like FNAF 2. Almost all the characters have voices now.
The others are like animals, but I am very aware.
And while some just speak nonsense,
They made sourdough bread on Monday and threw it out Wednesday, or rather they sold it at a discount for people wanting to feed the ducks, and then probably at the end of the day, finally, they threw it all out. I don't recall.
some of them drop some serious truth bombs.
This is how it feels, and you get to experience it over and over and over again, forever.
This game takes place in hell.
What a gift to relish, a victim that can't perish.
That's not a joke.
The fire within me burns eternal, and now you shall as well.
FNAF Goes to Hell is real, and it's coming to your house to beat you up. There's also a VR game now, which I haven't played because I'm poor. From what I've seen, it's a collection of mini-games based off of the previous games. It seems like people are genuinely enjoying it.
Not like this! No, please!
Come with me, wayward souls!
Even people who don't really like FNAF.
I've always been one of those advocate, like, haters of the series just because it's like, I hate jump scares. I think they're cheap.
You could say it's because it's more immersive and the jump scares work better when it's literally right in your face.
Fucking Christ!
But I think it works for the same reason my mom likes Stephen King's short stories. If you don't like one, it's over quickly and there's a lot more you could try. There's a good amount of variety in the gameplay. It's not just the same old format. They experiment with some new ideas.
Oh no.
You seem to have mishandled Freddy's music box.
Oh no!
And the lore is even new, this time focusing more on the technological and marketing side of the company.
There's another potential development studio that wants to pick up from here. But who knows what kind of lies they're being fed to convince them to do it.
But don't worry, Scott's still up to his old mystery box bullshit.
It left questions more than answers, guys. I don't even think we got a single question solved in the whole of the DLC.
Thank God that essential part of the series is still intact. And as of recent, the newest game is an augmented reality mobile game, which I also can't play because I have an iPhone 5 and nothing works on it. But hey, we're entering a new era of FNAF. It's growing and evolving, and Scott is growing and evolving as a creator. That's kind of exciting. I doubt I changed anyone's mind with this video, and that's fine. Five Nights at Freddy's is nowhere near a masterpiece. You're allowed to dislike it. But for all of its flaws, I'm just weirdly endeared to the franchise. Okay, yeah, sure. Scott was really cranking him out in the beginning, but, you know, once the initial high wore off, he really started to put a lot of care into his games, and they started to improve as a result. He's still very active in the process of making his games, even though he's starting to work with bigger companies. He very clearly cares about this franchise. I mean, the movie adaptation was announced in April 2015, right in the middle of the initial boom, but it's been pushed back and script after script has been scrapped, all because Scott wants to make a good product.
I've had a lot of scripts come across my desk. I've had a lot of ideas pitched. And, you know, one of the biggest challenges, and I've written 3 scripts on my own. Everybody was trying to get a movie out as fast as possible, like to catch the hype wave and stuff. But now looking back, I'm really glad that didn't happen, because something I've really started to come to want over these last few years is I want that movie to be able to stand on its own as a good movie and not ride the coattails of a different part of the franchise.
So, hell yeah, I'm gonna watch the movie, and I'm going to enjoy it. And I'm going to enjoy all the people bitching at it in the months before it comes out. Because even if it's bad, even if the writing is shit, even if it's not scary, even if it's just a giant jump scare fest like everyone says that the games are, there's very clearly somebody behind the scenes that loves it and cares about it and really, really wants it to be good. And that's more than most video game movies get.